In the year 1982, Halloween 3 Season of the Witch was released. It was received with negative reviews and the fans absolutely hated it. The critics found it to be a mess and the fans despised it because it had no Michael Myers. Since Season of the Witch, every Halloween sequel and reboot prominently featured Michael Myers. Filmmakers had learned that it wasn't the Halloween brand that drew fans, it was Michael Myers. It seems that David Gordon Green has forgotten that lesson. The marketing for Halloween Ends was unethical, to say the least. Starting with the poster, it was sold to audiences as the final showdown between Laurie Strode and Michael Myers, and the trailers were deceptively edited to pretend as though Michael would be a significant part of the plot. Spoilers, he was not. In this clip, Laurie shoots what looks to be Michael Myers. That is not Michael Myers, but someone else wearing the mask. Audiences arrived at theaters to watch the movies depicted in the trailers, the movie sold to us in the marketing. It was supposed to be the final battle between Laurie and Michael, good finally triumphing over evil, and Michael's last hurrah for this soft reboot trilogy. But instead we got the tale of Corey Cunningham, a character nobody cares about. This character was not set up in the previous two movies, which shows that David Gordon Green took the studio's money and had absolutely no clue what to do with it. Sat 4 years after the events of Halloween Kills, Halloween Ends once more opens with the town at peace. Laurie Strode had gotten therapy and grief counselling and has moved to a new house. A house that is lacking in all the traps and the guns that protected Laurie from Michael in Halloween 2018. Now this doesn't make much sense at all given the events of Halloween Kills. Her worst nightmare has murdered her daughter and an entire mob of townsfolk chanting couldn't defeat him. He's still out there, somewhere, lurking, waiting for his moment to strike. This Haddonfield isn't at the same state it was prior to Halloween 2018, 40 years along since the last Michael Myers murder. She wouldn't be treated as a crazy person for doing exactly as she did before. It's not paranoia if he's really out to get you. Halloween Ends also gives us a look into the psychology of the town through the narration of Laurie's memoir, because the concept of show don't tell is dead. We are told that the town has descended into a state of hysteria and paranoia, as if Halloween Kills didn't make that plain enough. The Haddonfield of Ends has one key difference to that of Kills, the element of blame. Haddonfielders blame Laurie for the events of Halloween 2018 and Kills, accusing her of baiting or teasing Michael, causing him to go on his rampage. If it were just the one person, I would consider it a side effect of the pathology Laurie talks about in her memoir, but multiple people seem to share this view. Her own granddaughter blames her for causing hysteria that killed her friends. As far as I'm aware, this point of view is entirely fabricated. No such opinion existed in either 2018 or Kills. If anyone can be accused of baiting Michael Myers, it would be Dr. Ranbir Sartain in 2018, who orchestrated Michael's escape to study him in the wild, even going so far as to save his life and drive him to Laurie's house. But it seems that the writers haven't even watched their previous two movies. The opening scene introduces us to the bait and switch character, Corey Cunningham. He's a fairly normal, nerdy kid looking to get into engineering, and he's been doing odd jobs like babysitting and mowing lawns to save up for college. He's currently babysitting a kid who plays a prank on him and locks him in a room. Corey kicks the door open, accidentally sending the kid over the railing to his death. This marks the beginning of Corey's arc and his eventual descent into madness. The town turns on him, treating him like a pariah. This is shown to us by the townsfolk refusing to stop or slow down for him on roads, even on zebra crossings, or hurrying him out of stores. This doesn't remain consistent. He goes on a date with Laurie's granddaughter to a Halloween party, where they dance together and none of the townspeople there try to kick him out, distance themselves from him, or even look at him with disdain. Corey and Allison have a grand old time until the mother of the child he killed yells at him. They had a great chance to show up close what the town thinks of him, and it turns out they don't really care too much at all. There's no distrust, disgust, or any negative emotions shown in the crowd except for the dead kid's mother. Corey's problems don't end there. He has recurring run-ins with a group of band kids who bully him for refusing to buy them beer. Laurie Strode worsens the situation by giving him a folding knife and essentially telling him to slash their tires. This gets the ball rolling on Corey turning into the single most generic serial killer ever put to screen. After the first encounter with the bully band kids, Laurie engineers the relationship between Corey and her granddaughter. You see, Corey's cut his hand open, so he requires medical attention, and Allison is a nurse. A match made in heaven, if you ask me. Turns out this was a terrible choice, both in terms of plot and in terms of writing consistency. After this injury, he gets hurt in far worse ways, and he never gets any medical help. Which is strange because his new girlfriend is a fucking nurse. But it's okay because he just walks it off every single time. Corey Cunningham's transformation into generic serial killer number 45 isn't a gradual one. Halloween Ends gestures vaguely at Corey standing up for himself, but the core of his metamorphosis can be traced to a single point. The fateful incident happens once again with the band kid bullies. This time, one of them throws him over the side of a bridge. Corey wakes up in a sewer, hurt and bewildered. And finally, an hour and change into the film, we finally get to see Michael Myers. As Corey tries to leave, Michael grabs his neck and they look deeply into each other's eyes. This is the moment that Corey Cunningham becomes every other revenge killer number 45. The filmmakers want us to believe that Michael Myers infected Corey with whatever evil he has in his soul. Our first introduction to Michael Myers isn't the haunting image of a stalker standing just out of vision, or a brief look at him in the corner of our eye before he disappears. He isn't introduced alongside the classic sting of John Carpenter's music. Instead, we see him cowering in a hole in a sewer, surrounded by cobwebs, choking this kid only to finally let him go. The destruction of Michael's character doesn't end there. Later in the film, Corey baits a police officer into Michael's sewer hole. At this point, Michael can't even kill the officer alone. He requires Corey's help. Halloween Kills showed him as a monster of a man that could fight off half a town's worth of people and make it out alive. This Michael Myers is an old, frail, weak version that needs someone to hold his victim down while he slowly hobbles towards him. To the credit of this film, they don't portray Michael as completely useless. After the killing of the police officer, he seems rejuvenated and forms a super team with Corey Cunningham. But Corey's kills aren't just revenge for himself, they're also chivalry. On his first and only outing with Michael Myers as a team, he kills Allison's boss, and Michael kills the head nurse that the doctor's been sleeping with. Allison was Corey's queen, and God help anyone who dared to disrespect his queen. Meanwhile, Laurie tries to convince herself and Allison that Corey is evil because she sees Michael in his eyes. At this point, both Laurie and Michael Myers settle into being extras in their own movie, while two plots starring Allison and Corey run side by side. The romance plot takes place on the surface, while the darker underbelly of Corey hunting down the people who wronged him runs beside it. Eventually, Corey comes after Laurie herself because she told him that he couldn't date Allison any longer. Laurie seems to be grappling with suicide because of all the unwarranted blame placed on her by the townspeople. She calls 911 and reports a suicide. A shot is fired and Corey, in the iconic Michael Myers mask, walks into the room. But the joke's on him because Laurie was only pretending to kill herself. She shoots Corey and he falls down the stairs. Corey then stabs himself in the neck as Allison's car approaches in order to frame Laurie for his death. This is the true ending of the film. Corey has taken his revenge on most of the people that harmed him or Allison, and he has, in a way, taken his revenge on Laurie. He has cursed her in the same way that he had been cursed. She will now be thought of as a murderer. It was almost poetic. Allison comes in and sees Laurie holding a bloody knife, standing over Corey, and she assumes Laurie has killed him, which completes Corey's arc. Now let's take a moment to appreciate the absolute mess of a script that follows. So Laurie has called in a suicide at her place, presumably her own. Turns out she was only pretending so she could bait Corey into a false sense of security. If we look at this phone call charitably, it's because Laurie wanted the cops to arrest or take down Corey. Now, as Allison is driving away, thinking that Laurie has killed her boyfriend in cold blood, she receives a call from a police officer who says that they're responding to a suicide call at Laurie's house. Allison mistakenly assumes this suicide is Corey's and returns to the Strode house, believing she was wrong about what she saw. When she arrives home, she sees Michael Myers choking her grandmother with a hand split in two. Allison rescues Laurie by breaking Michael's hand at the elbow and then slices his wrist so he bleeds out. Michael Myers has just lost to an old lady and her skinny 20-something granddaughter. No traps, no guns, no fire, nothing. The monster that terrorized this town and driven it into hysteria, who defeated an entire lynch mob single-handedly, lost to these two. Laurie's death was prevented because Allison misunderstood a phone call. After this ignoble, humiliating demise, the town straps Michael's dead body to the roof of a car and drives him down to the scrap yard. Laurie then dumps his body into a trash compactor, and we can see his body being turned into mulch. Now that the demon terrorizing this town has been dealt with, one would assume the next scene would concern itself with moving on from the fear and distrust that Michael has sown and finding healing. But no, the very next scene is Allison and Laurie talking about Corey, which shows in sharp relief that Michael Myers is an afterthought in his own movie. The scenes after Corey's death, up to and including turning Michael Myers into mulch, were just edited in because this final showdown was sold to the audience. David Gordon Green had absolutely no interest in including it at all. The character of Michael Myers was absolutely demolished in this film. Even Corey, his protege, yells at him and treats him with disrespect. Corey was very easily able to wrestle him and steal his mask before his final showdown with Laurie Strode. Michael Myers is depicted as weak, maimed, hurt, and generally incapable of doing anything he used to do. This is because David Gordon Green has completely misunderstood the Michael Myers character. He doesn't form teams, he doesn't take on students, and he definitely does not cower in sewers, rotting and waiting to die. Green sees Michael as some kind of artistic precision killer, which couldn't be further from the truth. Even if you only consider the 1978 film, this just isn't true. And of course, Michael now has the supernatural ability to turn other people into stabby serial killers with a single look into their eyes. And this perception is why Corey is even a character in this film. David Gordon Green saw Michael as a subtle killer, and he wanted louder, campier kills like in Blood Rage and Butcher, Baker, Nightmare Maker. He had set himself a rule that Michael wouldn't kill in the ways he wanted, so he created a new character out of whole cloth that would give him the gore that he wanted to show. Laurie Strode's character suffers a similar fate. While she isn't fridged like she was in Halloween Kills, she's given too much responsibility in weaving the fate of Haddonfield and Corey Cunningham. Michael's rampage was laid at her feet, and so is the town's hysteria. She's also given some sort of supernatural ability to detect Michael's evil in people's eyes. Jamie Lee Curtis claims that Laurie Strode's character in Ends is the result of good grief counseling and trauma therapy, which apparently allows her to act completely fucking stupid. She moves on from the death of her daughter really quickly and stops preparing for a threat that she knows is all too real and is still out there. If anything, this film is an advertisement against therapy and grief counseling. Let me be very clear here. Halloween Ends is an awful mess, specifically because of David Gordon Green's terrible mindset and horrible work ethic. Green was tired of Michael Myers and the horror genre in general. He wanted to move on to another plaything. This is the cause of the sheer disrespect shown to Michael Myers. Michael's involvement in the film is a short humiliation ritual, where he is afforded no wins, no strength, and no dignity. David Gordon Green's preparation for both Kills and Ends was terrible. He admits that while he was making Kills, he had no specific plans for Ends, just an idea of tone and theme. He also wanted to inject a romance subplot, and that's where his planning ends. The primary antagonist for Halloween Ends, Corey Cunningham, was not introduced or even hinted at in the previous two films. His entire story opening and closing in the last film of the trilogy. Halloween Ends suffers because of Green's poor work ethic. The ending of the film was up in the air until September of 2022, when the film was slated to be released in October of 2022. The ending they shot and the ending that was in the script are different because Green grew tired of that ending. This is a common theme with Green. He's grown tired of a lot of things and throws wrenches into plans and ideas simply because he thinks of himself as an auteur. David Gordon Green dislikes Halloween fans. He didn't care about what the fans wanted to watch. He just wanted to make a film that separates himself from other Halloween filmmakers and to make Halloween Ends as unique as possible compared to the slew of other movies in the franchise. Green, Danny McBride, and the other writers on the film approached ideas that they thought that fans would like to see, but scrapped them because they didn't sustain Green's interest. He didn't want to go through the logistical and emotional effort to bring these ideas to the screen. This is an original tagline for Halloween Ends. After 45 years, the most acclaimed, revered horror franchise in film history reaches its epic, terrifying conclusion as Laurie Strode faces off for the last time against the embodiment of evil, Michael Myers, in a final confrontation unlike any captured on screen before. Only one of them will survive. This is false advertising, a result of the sleight of hand that David Gordon Green talks about in his interviews. He has lied to Halloween fans, selling a movie in trailers and taglines that doesn't actually exist. Unscrupulous at best and fraudulent at worst. Let's ignore the fact that it's a Halloween film, or even that it's part of a trilogy of films for a moment. Is Corey Cunningham a well-made character, and is this a good film? The answer is still a resounding no. Corey's transformation from a mild-mannered, put-upon kid in a bad situation to a generic revenge killer is far too quick, pivoting around a single point in the film. The film has ridiculous pacing issues as well. The first hour and change of the film is tedious and has little to do with the actual story. The motivation of the characters are strange and scuffed, and interactions between characters make little sense. For example, Corey's mother. She's a shrill bat of a woman that is shown to be overprotective of her son. But then she kicks him out of her house, slaps him, and kisses him on the lips in one of the strangest scenes I've ever seen put to film. Corey walks around with visible wounds throughout the film, and his girlfriend, a nurse, even remarks that a cut he has is infected, but continues to do fuck all about it. The people in this film barely act like humans. The end result of David Gordon Green's disrespect for the fan base, his awful planning and abysmal work ethic, is an irredeemable mess of a film. He has completely misunderstood why people love Michael Myers as a villain, and instead substituted his own invention, a derivative serial killer that isn't scary at all, because his motivations are an open book to us. There's no mystery, no stalker in the dark, just another revenge killer that will be forgotten the moment that audiences turn off the TV. Halloween Ends is a disrespectful, offensive, and irresponsible film from a filmmaker who has absolutely no idea what he was doing.